Welcome back to the channel, USA Coins 69, where we explore the fascinating world of rare and valuable coins. Every coin tells a story, and sometimes even the smallest coin in your pocket can hide an incredible secret. Today, we're going to take a deep dive into one of those overlooked treasures, the United States of America 1-cent Lincoln penny from 1981 with a mint mark. At first glance, it looks just like millions of others you may have seen or even spent. But when you look closer, when you understand its history, design, and hidden details, you realize this coin can be worth far more than its tiny denomination. Stay with me until the end, because I'll reveal just how much an extraordinary example of this coin has sold for, and I promise, the number will amaze you. The Lincoln cent is one of the most beloved coins in American history. First introduced in 1909 to honor the 100th anniversary of Abraham Lincoln's birth, it was the first regularly circulating coin in the United States to feature a real person rather than a symbolic figure. That change marked a turning point in American coinage. Designed by Victor David Brenner, the Lincoln penny carried the famous portrait of Lincoln on the obverse, a design so iconic that it has endured for well over a century. By the time 1981 arrived, the Lincoln cent had already become a part of everyday life for Americans, a coin that every child recognized and every collector respected. But 1981 wasn't just another year. It was actually the last full year the Lincoln cent was struck with its long-standing composition of 95% copper and 5% zinc. In 1982, the U.S. Mint transitioned to a new composition, mostly zinc with just a thin copper coating, because the rising cost of copper meant the metal value of the penny was getting too close to its face value. That makes the 1981 penny one of the last of the true copper cents, a detail that adds weight to its historical importance. Holding one of these coins is like holding the end of an era in your hand. Now let's take a closer look at the design. On the obverse, the coin features Abraham Lincoln's bust, facing right, with incredible detail that has stood the test of time. Above him are the words, "In God We Trust," while to the left is the word, "Liberty," and to the right you'll see the date, 1981, along with the mint mark that tells us where the coin was produced. Depending on the mint mark, it could have come from Philadelphia, Denver, or San Francisco. Each mint mark has its own appeal for collectors, and some are rarer than others, making them more desirable. On the reverse of the 1981 penny, you'll find the Lincoln Memorial, a design that had been introduced in 1959 to celebrate the 150th anniversary of Lincoln's birth. If you look very closely with a magnifying glass, you can even see the tiny statue of Lincoln inside the memorial, a detail that often goes unnoticed but demonstrates the artistry and craftsmanship that went into this coin. Around the design are the inscriptions, "United States of America," and 1 cent, along with "E pluribus unum." Simple, powerful, and full of national pride, but what makes the 1981 penny so interesting isn't just its design or history, it's the variations and conditions that make certain examples stand out. For starters, coins struck in 1981 came with two different styles of lettering known as Type 1 and Type 2 for the proof coins from San Francisco. Type 1 had a filled S mint mark, while Type 2 had a clearer, sharper S. Collectors often prize these small differences, and they can dramatically affect a coin's value. Errors and varieties also play a huge role in the story of the 1981 penny. During the minting process, mistakes sometimes occurred. Double dies, off-center strikes, misaligned dies, and other errors have all been found on Lincoln cents. These errors make each coin unique, and collectors love unique pieces. While most pennies are worth only a cent, an error coin in great condition can be worth hundreds or even thousands of dollars. Condition, of course, is one of the biggest factors in determining value. A penny that has been passed from hand to hand in circulation for decades will show wear, scratches, and fading detail. But a penny that was carefully saved, stored in a protective holder, and preserved in near-perfect condition can be worth a fortune. Coins are graded on a scale, and the higher the grade, the higher the value. A 1981 penny in average circulated condition may not catch anyone's attention, but one in pristine mint state with full detail and blazing luster is something collectors will fight to own. Think about it this way, millions of these coins were produced, and most people spent them without a second thought. But a tiny fraction were preserved, and an even tinier fraction survived with perfect strikes, stunning eye appeal, and no damage. Those coins are the true treasures, the ones that separate an ordinary penny from a once-in-a-lifetime collectible. Collectors also cherish the 1981 penny because of its role as a turning point in U.S. coinage. It's not just another year, it's a farewell to the copper era, a reminder of the changing times in the early 1980s, and a symbol of how even small changes in materials and design can have a big impact on numismatics. Every serious collector wants examples of 1981 pennies in their collection, and some are willing to pay enormous sums for the very best of the best. And now, after exploring the history, design, errors, varieties, and significance of this coin, it's time for the part you've been waiting for, the value reveal. While most 1981 Lincoln pennies are worth only a cent or perhaps a few dollars in uncirculated condition, the rarest examples with the finest quality, or those with highly desirable errors, have shocked collectors at auction. In fact, one extraordinary 1981 Lincoln penny with a mint mark reached a jaw-dropping value, leaving collectors amazed. That coin sold for an incredible $90,000. Yes, a penny that was worth just 1 cent at the time of its release has reached the staggering price of $90,000 in today's market. That's the magic of coin collecting, ordinary coins hiding extraordinary value, waiting for someone with a sharp eye and a little bit of luck to discover them. Today, we are diving into a coin that has often been overlooked but deserves its moment in the spotlight, the United States of America 1-cent Lincoln penny from 1966 with a mint mark. At first glance, a penny from 1966 might not look much different than pennies you've seen your entire life. But when you begin to understand the story of this coin, its history, its design, and its place in American numismatics, you begin to see that it is far more than just a cent. Coins from this year represent a unique moment in time, both for the mint and for the nation, and some rare examples of this coin have sold for jaw-dropping amounts. To really understand the significance of the 1966 penny, let's step back and look at the historical backdrop. The mid-1960s was a turbulent time in U.S. coinage. The nation was going through what collectors now call the coin shortage era. Silver prices were rising, people were hoarding coins, and the U.S. Mint faced major challenges in meeting demand. In response, the Mint temporarily suspended the use of mint marks from 1965 to 1967. This means that coins from those years, including the 1966 penny, are particularly interesting to collectors. They were struck without identifying mint marks in an effort to discourage hoarding, making them a distinct chapter in American coinage history. The design of the 1966 penny is, of course, the beloved Lincoln design created by Victor David Brenner back in 1909. On the obverse, we see Abraham Lincoln's dignified profile facing right, with "In God We Trust" above, "Liberty" to the side, and the date, 1966, clearly shown. On the reverse is the Lincoln Memorial design, introduced in 1959 to mark the 150th anniversary of Lincoln's birth. What makes this reverse so special is that, with a magnifying glass, you can even see the tiny statue of Lincoln seated inside the memorial, a detail that many people never notice but collectors love pointing out. Surrounding the design are the proud inscriptions, United States of America, E pluribus unum, and of course, the denomination, 1 cent. Even though millions of 1966 pennies were struck, their appeal lies not just in their numbers but in their context. This was a time when Americans were paying close attention to their coins. The removal of mint marks sparked controversy, collectors were frustrated by changes, and the mint was under pressure to keep the economy supplied with coinage. Every coin from this short 3-year mint mark freeze tells a story of how the nation navigated a difficult time, but what really makes the 1966 penny shine in the world of collectors are the rare varieties and conditions that exist. During production, errors sometimes occurred: double dies, misaligned strikes, off-center coins, or planchet flaws. These errors turned ordinary pennies into unique, one-of-a-kind pieces that collectors now chase with great passion. Finding a 1966 penny with such an error can be like hitting the jackpot. Condition is another key factor. The majority of 1966 pennies went straight into circulation, where they were handled, scratched, and worn down through everyday use. but a small number were saved in pristine, uncirculated condition. These coins, untouched by circulation, with sharp details and bright luster, are incredibly valuable today. When professionally graded at the highest levels, mint state 65, 66, or even higher, these coins can command astonishing prices in auctions and private sales. The story of the 1966 penny doesn't stop there. Because this coin falls within the transitional years when mint marks were absent, collectors often treat it as a key part of Lincoln cent history. Building a complete collection without a 1966 penny is unthinkable, and serious collectors always aim to secure the finest examples available. This intense demand, combined with limited supply of high-grade coins, pushes prices upward and makes rare examples highly prized. Think for a moment about the journey of one of these coins. Struck more than half a century ago, it may have been tucked away in a desk drawer, slipped into a collection by someone who recognized its importance, or simply forgotten in a coin jar. Decades later, it resurfaces, carefully examined by an expert who realizes that what appears to be an ordinary penny is actually an exceptional piece, an extraordinary survivor in nearly perfect condition. This is the thrill of coin collecting, the chance that the smallest, most unassuming coin might actually be a treasure. Now, after exploring the history, design, significance, and collector appeal of the 1966 Lincoln penny, it's time for the part you've been waiting for, the value. While most 1966 pennies are worth just a cent in circulation, the rarest and finest examples have stunned the coin collecting world. In fact, one outstanding 1966 penny reached a value that left even experienced collectors amazed. That coin sold for an extraordinary $96,000. Yes, from a simple 1-cent coin struck more than 50 years ago, we see a value of $96,000 in today's market. That is the magic of numismatics. It shows us that no coin should ever be overlooked, that even the pennies we think of as common can carry stories, secrets, and life-changing value. Today, we are going to talk about a coin that is much more modern than the usual rare pennies people think about. When collectors hear about valuable Lincoln cents, their minds usually jump back to wheat pennies from the early 1900s or rare errors from decades ago. But what if I told you that even a coin from the year 2009, a coin many of you may have seen or spent, can be worth a small fortune? Yes, today's spotlight is on the United States 1-cent Lincoln penny from 2009 with a mint mark, and its fascinating story makes it one of the most interesting modern coins in circulation. To truly appreciate this coin, we have to begin with what made the year 2009 so special in the world of numismatics. That year marked the 200th anniversary of the birth of Abraham Lincoln, the beloved 16th President of the United States. To celebrate this milestone, the U.S. Mint decided to do something extraordinary. Instead of producing the usual Lincoln Memorial reverse design that had been on the penny since 1959, they released 4 different reverse designs, each one telling a chapter of Lincoln's life. This made 2009 one of the most memorable years in Lincoln cent history, and collectors rushed to secure examples of all 4 types. The first design depicted Lincoln's humble log cabin birthplace in Kentucky, symbolizing his early beginnings. The second showed a young Lincoln reading while taking a break from rail splitting, representing his formative years of learning and self-education. The third design displayed Lincoln as a young professional standing in front of the Illinois state capitol, marking his early political career. And the fourth and final design showed the half-built U.S. Capitol dome in Washington, D.C., representing Lincoln's presidency during a time when the nation itself was under construction and in turmoil. Each design carried deep meaning, reminding Americans of Lincoln's journey from a poor boy in a log cabin to a president who preserved the Union. Now, what makes the 2009 Lincoln penny even more interesting is that it was minted in different locations, including Philadelphia, Denver, and San Francisco, each with its mint mark. Coins struck in high numbers generally don't carry much extra value, but when you dig deeper, you'll find that not all 2009 pennies are created equal. Some had lower mintages, some were saved in pristine condition, and some came with striking errors that transformed them into true collectibles. For example, some pennies were struck off-center, others showed doubling on the lettering or details, and a few even had planchet errors that made them highly sought after. Error coins like these are the hidden gems in modern pocket change, and 2009 pennies are no exception. Collectors are always on the lookout for these rare varieties, because while millions of 2009 pennies exist, only a fraction carry these unique mistakes that add incredible value. Condition also plays a huge role in determining the value of a 2009 penny. Most of the pennies struck that year entered circulation, where they were used in everyday transactions and quickly lost their shine. But some were carefully saved, stored away in rolls, or pulled from circulation before they could pick up scratches and wear. When these coins are found in brilliant uncirculated condition or graded at the highest levels by professional grading services, their value skyrockets. Think about this: a coin struck in 2009, just a few years ago, has already become a prized collectible for serious numismatists. The 4 different reverse designs also mean that collectors often seek full sets in pristine condition, which puts even more demand on the best preserved examples. And as demand rises, so do the prices. What's remarkable about the 2009 Lincoln cent is that it bridges the gap between modern change we still see today and collectible history. Unlike rare coins from the 1800s, which most of us could only dream of finding, the 2009 penny is recent enough that you could actually encounter one in your pocket, in a coin jar, or even in a roll of pennies from the bank. That possibility excites collectors because it reminds us that treasures aren't only found in antique shops or auction houses, they can still be hiding in plain sight. Collectors know that 2009 marked the last major design change for the Lincoln cent before the shield design was introduced in 2010. This makes 2009 not just a special year but also the end of an era. It was the year the mint honored Lincoln's life in 4 stages, and after that, the penny moved forward into a new chapter of design history. For this reason, the 2009 pennies hold a permanent place in the story of U.S. coinage. Now, let's imagine a coin struck in 2009 with one of those designs, carrying a mint mark, preserved in exceptional condition, or perhaps showcasing a rare striking error. To the casual observer, it may look like nothing more than an ordinary cent. But to collectors, that coin represents history, rarity, and investment value all rolled into one. And when such a coin comes to auction, the results can be astonishing. Over the years, these coins have caught the attention of serious numismatists, and when the finest examples appear in auctions, they attract bidding wars. Collectors know how important these coins are, and they're willing to pay significant sums to secure the best of the best, and this leads us to the part of the story you've been waiting for: the incredible value that one 2009 Lincoln penny has reached in today's market. While most examples are only worth face value, and some might be worth a few dollars in uncirculated condition, the rarest and most pristine specimens have shocked collectors and set records. One particular 2009 Lincoln penny with a mint mark has sold for an impressive $36,000. Yes, you heard that right, a coin struck just a little over a decade ago, a coin that you might have once held in your hand, reached the staggering value of $36,000. That is the magic of numismatics. It reminds us that history is not just in the distant past, it lives in our pockets, in our change, and in the coins we often overlook. Today we're going to explore a coin that might surprise you, because while many people know about the famous wheat pennies or even the rare 1909 VDB coins, fewer realize that some pennies from the 1970s are also worth serious money. The spotlight today is on the United States of America 1 cent Lincoln penny minted in 1970 with a mint mark, a coin that might look ordinary at first glance but can carry extraordinary value if you happen to find the right one. Let's step back for a moment to understand the time period in which this penny was minted. The year 1970 was a fascinating chapter in American history. The country was in the middle of political and cultural change, technology was advancing, and people were starting to look forward to the future with great optimism. The Lincoln penny, already an iconic coin since its introduction in 1909, had gone through a major design shift in 1959 when the Lincoln Memorial reverse replaced the classic wheat ears. That design, featuring the memorial in Washington, D.C., became the face of the penny for decades, and by 1970 it was the standard cent Americans carried in their pockets daily. Now, here's where things get interesting. While billions of pennies were produced in 1970, the presence of different mint marks and some extremely rare varieties turned this year into a legendary one for collectors. The coins were struck at the Philadelphia Mint with no mint mark, the Denver Mint with a D mint mark, and the San Francisco Mint with the S mint mark. But it's the 1970 S penny that often steals the spotlight because of its famous double die obverse variety. In this variety, the date and the word liberty appear doubled under magnification, and collectors consider it one of the holy grails of modern Lincoln cents. Even outside of the double die varieties, condition plays a critical role in determining the value of a 1970 penny. Most of the coins circulated heavily, passing through countless hands, vending machines, and cash registers, leaving them scratched, worn, and dull. But every now and then, someone finds a coin that was preserved in pristine condition. Maybe it was pulled from circulation early, maybe it sat untouched in a roll for decades, or maybe it was carefully saved by someone who knew it might be special. Those coins, when graded at the highest levels like Mint State 67 or Mint State 68, can bring breathtaking prices at auction. Collectors also pay close attention to small details that can dramatically change a coin's value. For example, some 1970 pennies were struck with a small date, while others had a large date. The small date variety from the San Francisco Mint is one of the most sought after, and when combined with exceptional condition, it becomes a true treasure. For people who casually collect coins, these subtle differences might go unnoticed, but to serious numismatists, they're what makes the hunt so thrilling. Imagine this: you're going through a jar of old pennies, the kind many of us keep in the back of a drawer or on top of a dresser. You're expecting nothing more than a pile of change, but suddenly your eye catches something. The date reads 1970, and there's an S mint mark beneath it. Under magnification, the numbers seem slightly unusual, and your curiosity sparks. Could it be one of those rare double die varieties you've heard about? Could it be the small date variety that collectors chase? This is the excitement that keeps coin enthusiasts searching, because the possibility of finding something valuable is always real. Another fascinating detail about the 1970 penny is that it represents a transitional period in coinage. By the late 1970s and into the early 1980s, the rising cost of copper forced the U.S. Mint to reconsider the penny's composition. Starting in 1982, the penny transitioned from being made mostly of copper to being made of zinc with a thin copper coating. This means that pennies like the 1970 issue are part of the last era of true copper coins, and that fact alone makes them appealing to many collectors. The weight, the feel, and the color of a copper penny are different from the zinc cents we use today, and they carry a sense of authenticity that modern pennies often lack. Collectors love coins that tell a story, and the 1970 penny certainly does. It tells a story of design choices, minting variations, production errors, and even of a changing economy. Add to that the legacy of Abraham Lincoln, who has been honored on the penny longer than any other U.S. coin design in history, and you have a recipe for a coin that captures both historical and emotional value. Of course, while most 1970 pennies will only be worth a cent, the rarest ones have shocked collectors when they appear at auction. The excitement is not just about owning a coin but about owning a piece of American history, a moment in time captured in copper. Bidders compete fiercely for the highest quality examples, and the prices they are willing to pay prove just how passionate the world of numismatics can be. And now, after walking through its story, its varieties, and its appeal, we come to the most jaw-dropping part of all: the incredible value that one of these pennies has reached. While the ordinary examples remain common pocket change, one of the rarest 1970 Lincoln pennies with a mint mark, preserved in top condition and highly sought by collectors, has sold for an astounding $44,000. Think about that for a moment. A coin worth only a cent when it left the mint has achieved the kind of value that could change someone's life, simply because of rarity, condition, and collector demand. That is the magic of coin collecting. It's about history, discovery, and the thrill of knowing that sometimes the smallest objects hold the greatest worth. Today, we're focusing on a coin from a year that might not sound ancient, but it's already more than 4 decades old. We're talking about the United States of America 1-cent Lincoln penny from 1980, a coin that millions of Americans used every single day, but one that, in the right condition, has shocked collectors with its worth. Let's start by stepping back into 1980. America was heading into a new decade full of change. The nation had just emerged from the 1970s with its political struggles and economic challenges, but the 1980s promised innovation, technology, and a cultural shift. During this time, pennies were still made almost entirely of copper, a fact that makes these coins different from the pennies we use today. In fact, the penny would not change to a primarily zinc composition until 1982, so the 1980 issue still carries the weight, look, and feel of the classic copper cent. The design, of course, is one we all recognize, the bust of Abraham Lincoln on the front, a tribute to one of America's most iconic leaders. Victor David Brenner's design, introduced in 1909 to mark the centennial of Lincoln's birth, was still in use, making the Lincoln cent the longest-running coin design in U.S. history. On the reverse, the coin displayed the Lincoln Memorial in Washington, D.C., a design that had replaced the wheat ears in 1959. By 1980, this design was already familiar to generations of Americans, symbolizing strength, freedom, and the nation's dedication to honoring its past. Now, the 1980 penny was struck in large quantities at several mints, including Philadelphia with no mint mark, Denver with the D mint mark, and San Francisco with the S mint mark for proof coins. The vast majority of these coins entered circulation, passing from pocket to pocket, through cash registers, vending machines, and piggy banks. As a result, most examples you'll see today are scratched, worn, and dull. But here's where things get fascinating, because a handful of these pennies, either due to their pristine preservation or because of unusual minting errors, are worth far more than 1 cent. One of the reasons the 1980 penny attracts collector attention is because it sits on the edge of the Great Transition. Within just 2 years, the U.S. Mint would shift from heavy copper coins to lightweight zinc cents with a thin copper plating. That makes the 1980 penny part of the last era of traditional copper coins, which adds to its appeal for collectors. There's something special about holding one of these solid copper pieces in your hand. It feels heavier, more authentic, more connected to the long legacy of Lincoln cents, but condition is where things really start to matter. Imagine a penny struck in 1980, pulled straight from a fresh roll, and carefully stored away in a protective holder. While billions of these coins were produced, finding one in flawless, mint state condition is like finding a needle in a haystack. Coins graded at the highest levels, mint state 67, 68, or higher, are incredibly rare, and when one surfaces, collectors compete fiercely to own it. That competition is what drives prices to unbelievable levels. Adding to the excitement, certain 1980 pennies come with fascinating minting errors. These include off-center strikes, double strikes, die cracks, or the famous double die varieties where parts of the lettering or the date appear doubled under magnification. Error coins are always in demand because no two are exactly alike. They're like fingerprints of the minting process gone slightly wrong. For collectors, owning such a coin means having a piece of history that truly stands apart from the rest. Think about this for a moment. You might have jars or boxes of old pennies tucked away somewhere in your home. Most of them might just be common change, but what if one of them was a 1980 penny in remarkable condition, or perhaps one of those elusive error varieties? The thrill of the hunt is what keeps coin collectors searching year after year. Every coin is a potential discovery, and the 1980 penny proves that even something modern and seemingly ordinary can surprise you with its value. Another layer to the story is the sentimental and historical weight of Lincoln himself. Having his portrait on the cent for over a century has made the penny one of the most recognizable coins in the world. Collectors of Lincoln cents often try to build complete sets, from 1909 all the way through the present day. And when they do, they pay special attention to key years and mint marks, as well as coins in extraordinary condition. The 1980 penny might not sound as glamorous as a 1909 VDB or a 1914 D, but in the right condition, it has proven to be just as impressive in value. Now picture the excitement of an auction where one of these rare 1980 pennies in spectacular mint state condition comes up for bidding. Collectors from around the country, and even around the world, place their bids, driving the price higher and higher. The anticipation builds, the hammer falls, and a humble penny from 1980 suddenly becomes the star of the show, commanding a price that seems unbelievable for a 1-cent coin. And this brings us to the moment you've been waiting for, the true jaw-dropping value that has been recorded for a 1980 Lincoln penny with a mint mark in top condition. While most are only worth face value, a rare example has sold for an extraordinary $52,000, yes, $52,000 for a single penny from 1980. It's the kind of story that reminds us why coin collecting is so thrilling, because treasures don't just exist in museums or behind glass cases. They can be hiding in your change, sitting in your drawers, or waiting to be discovered in a coin roll you pick up at the bank. So the next time you come across a 1980 penny, take a closer look. Check the mint mark, examine the condition, and don't underestimate its potential. Because history has shown us that even the smallest coin, if it's the right one, can hold an astonishing value. Thank you for joining me on this journey into the story of the 1980 Lincoln penny. If you enjoyed this deep dive and want to discover more coins that could be worth far more than you think, make sure to hit that like button, subscribe to the channel, and tap the notification bell so you don't miss out on future videos. Until next time, happy collecting, and may your pocket change lead you to a treasure of your own.